Welcome back to Exposure. I'm your host, Steve Rodijev, and we're here with local filmmaker Derek Jones, also known as D. Jones. You've shot in Toledo and Youngstown. Has there been any other places you've filmed?
I mean, there's this concept in film school. One of my film professors would always talk about the notion of filling the bag. As a documentary filmmaker, you just fill the bag because you have a great amount of material to work with, and then you can kind of whittle away at that material to create your story. So as long as you keep capturing, you have options. And so every time I go places, I will capture. And so I spent some time living out in Colorado, did some stuff out there, definitely Toledo, Michigan, all throughout Ohio, so many places around the world. And then also, France, Caribbean, a wealth of bag filling in my life.
That's pretty interesting. When going to these locations, is it very hard to deal with the locations, like getting permission to film in some areas?
Well, that's one of the things that I like about documentary filmmaking is that we're not necessarily the setting at times is the last thing to think about. Really, it's about what are you trying to capture as far as subject matter. A lot of it is just the stuff that people would tape on a regular basis. It's not so much a formal film setup or different things like that. And nowadays, in the age of everybody having a camera in their hand, it's quite normal to our culture out in society to see someone just shooting something. And so I just kind of take risks and make it happen where it happens.
Taking risks, you actually deal with some certain kind of subject matter that a lot of people wouldn't really know, or you tend to shed a lot of light on. Speaking with the Great Incarcerator, tell us a little bit about that, because that's like a two-part series.
I got connected to that subject matter through my mom, who was working on a show about the Lucasville prison uprising in 1993 happening in southern Ohio, and the inmates who were involved in that. And I just really found myself connected to the subject matter, first of all, because it was something that was talking about a counter narrative, a story that is out there but hasn't been out there and told in a way, particularly through the eyes of the inmates. And so when I got connected to that project, I just felt this, I don't know what it was, you can say calling or anything like that, to contribute to helping to tell that side of the story. As I was working on the project, it grew into something much bigger as far as trying to express to our general culture what the prison system was about. We have a culture where we don't necessarily have to know very much about incarceration in order for it to exist in our lives. And so as that started to develop and grow, we took a look at it and decided why not split the film up into two parts and talk first and foremost about some very significant prison issues in general, such as mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex, the 13th Amendment, and legalized slavery through the prison system, and use that as kind of like a primer, if you will, or a guide to our prison system before talking about the plight of these inmates.
Let's take a look at a clip from The Great Incarcerator.
With deindustrialization and globalization, the end of factory work as we once knew it in the United States, I think we have entered into an era in which black and brown men, to a large degree, are viewed as no longer necessary to the functioning of the U.S. economy. No longer needed to pick cotton in the fields or labor in factories. Black and brown folks are now viewed as disposable.
Because we inhabit a country that encourages historical amnesia, that does not encourage us to inhabit our histories and understand the way in which we are inhabited by those histories, we fail to detect the ways in which slavery was not fully abolished.
Talk about some of the certain styles that you deal with while making these documentaries.
I like, because I work in documentary and I like to work on, personal documentary, I like to tell stories that have some longevity to them. So, 631 takes place over, a 40, 50 year period. I like to use different types of footage. So, example in that film is there's color film from the 60s. There's high 8, there's VHS, there's HD. Right now I've got some old cell phones from the late 90s and early 2000s that I'm trying to get footage off of and things like that. So I really like that notion of saying that the story comes from different angles, and therefore the video comes from different qualities and different ways of being able to see it.
In your style of filmmaking, you have some certain themes of how you like to overlay the footage. Talk a little bit about that.
I think there's something very emotional about footage, because it's something that was captured maybe with intention or with no intention in mind except for to capture footage, that there's always something that we can draw out of it. And so I like to kind of listen to what's being said underneath it, where the cut points are, how there's a rhythm to those things. I very much like to use darkness as a theme as well. I like to, at some point, whether it's someone speaking or the music or anything, just cut that and go to darkness. And part of the reason why I like to do that is because I think that it's kind of one of those, like, when you do a audience check, are you still with me? There's a portion of 631 where it goes dark, and my mother's speaking in the background. And I love it when in a screening when someone like looks around and they go, is there something wrong here?
Right,
Because
there's no picture.
There's no picture,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, on one hand, it's like listen to the words, but at the same time, it's almost kind of like, okay, I know you're paying attention.
Right.
I know that you're in there because your eyes are going towards an expectation of an image, and when that expectation is broken, you're looking around like, where's my where's my reward? And
Right.
and so I just kind of like disrupting that kind of the connection between the visual and the audible when you're listening to a film and watching it.
Let's take a look at some more work from D. Jones.
The prison official would not allow us to talk to the media. Some people, they took the big speakers from the gym and they brought it to where the media was actually facing. And prisoners start playing requests, their demands, and when the prison official or prison authority realized they was communicating with the media, they actually cut off the power and electricity. So then prisoners took sheets.
It seems that the inmates are trying to get in touch with us, the media. They're hanging sheets outside the windows.
So let me get this straight. If I send you 2 hostages out there, we can discuss the live news coverage. Is that proper?
Okay, George, I can't guarantee you that the news media will even talk to you.
Oh, cut it out. Now, hold the phone. Now, we're supposed to be eye to eye here, right? You think they wouldn't want to talk to one of us or 2 of us or whatever?
The inmates who had taken control of the prison wanted to speak to a journalist.